Hey fellow Netrunners, how's it going? Today we'll be talking about post-core 2 and rotation tag and bag strategies. Boom! There, I said it. A card so simple, do 7 meat damage, yet so elegant in design. You either love it or you hate it to shreds. I, for one, climbed up all the way to second place at Worlds with this card, so I can't complain about it too much. But honestly, this card is it almost defines Netrunner to a certain extent. It's the new Scorched Earth. And Scorched Earth used to define Netrunner from the very outset in the core set days. And now that's gone, we have Boom to terrorize anyone who chooses to take one too many tags. So, I would like to argue that Boom is actually stronger post Core 2 and rotation. It might sound really weird because you don't see that many tag and back decks out there. But if you look at the runner side cards, you understand what I mean. It's Natural Predator, the one card that hard counters it, is now gone from the card pool. Plascrete Carapace is no more, and there doesn't seem to be a one replacement for it. And that's a big deal because when Boom was printed in the Flashpoint cycle, the power level of it seemed to be balanced around the fact that runners could include Plascrete. Without Plascrete, the 7 meat damage may as well read you win the game for almost every single runner. It is that good. There are other counter cards, you could some of the more commonly played ones at the competitive level are Paparazzi and Obelisk. But with Core 2 and rotation, these cards will also see less play. There's less reason to include Paparazzi in your Tag Me deck because DLR, Data Leak Reversal, is no longer a thing. So you don't really need to defend your resources anymore. Similarly with Obelisk, with account Siphon gone, Tag Me strategies are just not as good anymore. Outside of the God of War counter surveillance deck, you're not going to really see Obelisk anymore. More is just too good. So, because of this, all these reasons, Boom becomes that much stronger. Very few runners have a way to counter 7 meat damage. So this is why Boom is my card of choice, my tag and back card of choice, even though lore-wise, theme-wise, you're not going to see Wizard get boomed anymore. He's already dead. But why is it then that we don't see everyone and their cat running Boom's decks? Well, as you know, you need 2 hands to clap. You have the bag, but where are the tags? The tags are the biggest problem with any Boom deck nowadays. Let's look at these cards. These are the yellow cards that used to enable Boom one way or another because these are the cards that can proactively deal at least 2 tags to the runner. Breaking news, 24/7 mid-seasons and hard-hitting news. Half of them have gone thanks to Core 2 and rotation. And with that, with breaking news out of the way, 24/7 is no longer a card that can dish out 2 tags at will, leaving us only with one option to double tag the runner. But is hard hitting news even that good? Yes, you look at the subtype and you realize that this just isn't your Boom enabler. It's a terminal. If one day somehow the designer decides to print a card that allows you to bypass the terminal restriction on terminal operations, yes, the game will be broken and everyone will start abusing hard hitting news into Boom combos. But I trust they won't do that, and until they do that, this means that you can't really enable the hard-hitting news Boom combo because if you're forced to end your turn after the hard-hitting news, the runner has 4 clicks to, do something about those tags before you can follow up with the kill. So this is the core problem. And the way to solve it as the core is to disrupt the runner's next turn. How do you do that? Well, some of you might already know. Some of you might have seen it out in the wild. Yes, you play hard-hitting news and Boom in CI with load testing, which is in HB's faction. It seems weird to do a kill combo in HB if you're importing both hard hitting news and Boom, but when you look at the combo, it makes sense. By playing 2 load testings before running hard hitting news, your opponent now only has 2 clicks to clear tags. They can clear 2 tags. Guess what? Next turn they'll be hit with the Boom. This is a stupid combo, and it really doesn't help that it's played in CI, which is so far above the power curve now thanks to the clearances. This is not the most interactive deck in the world, and I don't really like it personally. You can try it out for yourself, build a CI deck with load testing hard news Boom. I don't think you'll find it very fun. It's kind of degenerate. Who am I to speak about degeneracy anyway? But What I'm here to do is to offer you a more fun solution. Enter False Lead. This card is another way to pull off the same combo. Hard hitting news, force the runner to lose clicks, and then boom them the very next turn. False Lead does the exact same thing as load testing, but is, in my opinion, a far more balanced card because False Lead is a 3-1 agenda. So not only do you have to actually find a scoring window to pump out this agenda, you also have to play a 3-1 agenda in your deck, and that's a problem. But first, let's go back to the basic combo. To reiterate, we want to hard hit news the runner, leave them with 2 clicks, after false leading them, meaning that they can't clear all 4 tags, and then swoop in for the kill with the remaining 2 tags. So, of course, the biggest problem is scoring this false lead. You typically want to rush this out early and behind some very secure end run ice. So, when thinking about this and building a deck, the first ice that came to mind is none other than Hive. This is the perfect ice to rush out your very first agenda behind, and if that first agenda is a false lead, all the better. This basically guarantees the false lead. If they decide to contest it early with a paperclip, they're spending 9 credits, 4 to install the paperclip, 5 to break the Hive. That will probably break their bank, and you can just go in for an early hard hitting news anyway. This seems like a good combo, too good to be true. In fact, it's so good that you want to play 3 copies of each card, just so that you see these cards more reliably. This also locks us into the Wayland faction. Since we're running 3 of each, Hive and Boom, that's a lot of influence if you're our faction. So with this as our basis for our kill win condition, what are the weak points and how can we shore them up with the rest of our deck? Well, as we mentioned, false lead is a big problem. You're forced to run 3 3-1 agendas. I've ranted about this long enough in my channel, but I'll say it again. 3-1 agendas are horrible. They bloat your agenda density. They make it, they make your R&D that much more vulnerable, and they're difficult to score. They don't give that many points back to you. How can we mitigate this? Yes, we play an agenda defensive ID. Argus Security is the perfect home if you're looking to run many one-pointers. And hey, it absolutely synergizes with our alternate win con in the flatline. The ID ability either deals 1 tag or 2 meat damage, both of which synergize with hard hitting news Boom. I love that. So, very good ID, and naturally, one of the stronger Wayland IDs actually, post Core 2 and Rotation. This is an often overlooked ID because Scorpios just hogs the limelight and BABW is a very strong economy ID, but Argus is nothing to scoff at either. This used to be a dead ID, in fact, which is why some people might have overlooked it, and with good reason. There used to be this card called Aaron Marone, which completely nullified Argus's ability. But now that has been placed on the ban list, we no longer have to worry about our 1 hard counter. Argus is now a good ID. Sure, there are some cards that still cause problems for us, but these 2 cards, Strike and Critic, are both on the restricted list, so that's a restricted slot taken up by the runner side. And anyway, you can deal with Film Critic. If they host an agenda on Film Critic and then liberate it with double click, well, they are losing tempo either way. We are fine with that. This is a tempo ID. You want to slow down the runner and prevent them from going too aggressive early on. As for Strike, well, you can always fast advance a hostile, score an agenda. You should be trying to pump out agendas anyway. So there we have it. A Rush Argus kill deck. Going back to our 4-card combo, what else? What other weak points do we have? Well, it's the hard-hitting news, right? Even if we manage to assemble all these 4 cards, we still cannot guarantee the kill. We need to have more money than the runner to trigger hard-hitting news. Where are we going to get that money from? We are not BABW. Well, we have to look at the Wayland operations. Let's try to get some burst economy, play some IPOs, some hedge funds, the standard. What else can we play? I looked through all the Wayland operation econ. Paywall, yeah, there are not that many. And then I stumbled upon that one. Stock buyback. There we have it. We have so many agendas in our deck, right? Because we are playing Argus, we are playing lots of one-pointers. It's not uncommon to see the runner on 4 agendas and still needing 1 more agenda to win. Stock buyback will be absolutely amazing in that scenario, giving you a huge burst of credits once the runner has 2 or more agendas in the score area. It also triggers on Mad Dash and Fansight, 2 cards that we see very often in this day and age. So Stock Buyback seems like the perfect fit for this deck as a means of mid to late game economy to show up, bring you into hard-hitting news range. And since all these 3 are transactions, we might as well throw one Brian Stinson in. Why not? So there we have it. That's our Argus deck, and we'll be messing around with Argus today. This is going to be a fun one. Anytime you play Argus, you bet it's going to be a fun game. Fun deck as well. Let's talk about some of the card choices. The agendas, again, 13 agendas. This screams Argus. You don't want to play this in any other ID. That's too many agendas to leak. So you notice that 6 of them are 1-pointers, the 3 false leads and hostile takeovers. Outside of the false leads, all the other agendas either give you money or give you tutor ability in the form of an Atlas token. Both very crucial because you need to assemble kill pieces, you need to assemble money for the hard-hitting news. So that said, you also notice that because of the agenda suite, we are not playing global food. This frees up our restricted slot to play the other card on the restricted list that Wayland would probably want, which is Hunter Seeker. Now this is not a squad deck, we are not going to lock out the runner by killing the breakers, but what Hunter Seeker does actually is to counter one of our biggest fears. Which runner card do you think absolutely murders combo decks? More! And of course, Hunter Seeker deals with more very adequately. They spend 6 to install it, they steal an agenda, guess what? More is in the bin now. I love that combo, and it's a very good way to deal with more, because most other corp decks honestly don't have a good way to deal with more. With more out of the way, you can start reassembling your combo and hopefully getting the kill in sooner or later. So that's Hunter Seeker for you. We also have Consulting Visit. We're running so many operations, there's a good chance that at least one of them will be stuck in the bottom half of our deck. We don't want that. Consulting Visit will help us get those operations out of the bottom of our deck. Then that leaves us with our Influence. After spending 6 Influence on hard-hitting news, we have a lot left over. I'm gonna spend it on Ice, might as well. This is the part about the deck I'm most unsure about, and is something that is open to tweaking if you decide to copy my deck. I eventually settle on Tag Ice and BN Ice with IP Block and Data Ravens just because they synergize with the alternate win con. I'm going pretty heavy on the win con here, but it just makes sense. Unfortunately, Data Raven and IP Block don't deal multiple tags unless the runner doesn't beat the traces, so you can't really directly enable Boom this way. But it's still nice to click compress them. Once you score a false lead, you force the runner to run either on their first or third click, because they need to spend their second or fourth click respectively to clear the tag from Raven or IP Block. If you manage to stack 2 Data Ravens on your remote, they can't contest it at all without risking ending their turn tagged, and that could open up some kill opportunities. Finally, last 2 pips of influence spent on a very questionable card indeed, Heinlein Grid. 2 reasons. Firstly, I need fodder to push into a remote. One thing I realized about this deck is that it auto loses once the runner's on match point. The moment you jam anything in the remote, they'll run it, they'll steal it, they'll win. And that's a big problem. Snare is a possible card to stop this, but I prefer Heinlein Grid here because it synergizes with the false lead that we're already running. If they run first or second click into the Heinlein Grid, guess what? You sack the false lead, they are down to 0 credits and no clicks to recover. Very next turn, they pass the turn over to you. Drop that hard-hitting news, they can't clear the 4 tags. This is almost as degenerate as 24/7 breaking news into closed accounts into hard-hitting news. Almost. If they're smart about it, they can run third or fourth click, but otherwise, this is a combo. Very difficult to pull off, but very rewarding if you do. Let's see if we can pull it off in this upcoming game. Alright, today we are up against Haley, and this is not a very good matchup. Shaper in general, they will give you a couple of turns at the start where you have more money than them, and you have the ice when they don't have the icebreakers, and this is your golden opportunity to push some big agendas through, because once that window's over, you lose. Basically you lose, because they will have set up the economy, they will set up their breakers, and it's impossible to contest them from that point on. You can't land a hard-hitting news if they're richer than you, obviously. So my opponent getting a Beth cast start is pretty awful. I need to start pushing things out really quick. So here goes. End the run ice on a single install advanced agenda, the Atlas. My opponent doesn't even bother. Instead, they go for the Dean Lister, which tips me off. I now know that they're probably running Ormaquah as a breaker. Let's keep that in mind. Meanwhile, I get the Atlas through. This is a huge agenda. It's no false lead, but it gives me the Atlas token that I need to assemble my kill pieces. Very important given that I don't have hard-hitting news or the boom in hand. My opponent drops a Gauntlet here, which I'm very happy to see. No ice on HQ means that Gauntlet won't get multi-access on HQ. I'm happy with that. I meanwhile scored a hostile takeover because I was on 3 credits. I needed some way to gain credits. It was either using an Atlas for a hedge fund, which sounds bad, or scoring the hostile in my hand, which made a lot more sense. It's now turn 5. We need to go fast. Turn 5 is when they are getting ready to set up. They still don't have breakers, but have they assembled the resources. The Hunter Seeker in my hand is dead weight because they have double Satcon. So what I do here is jam advance the Atlas and put an Enigma on top of it for good measure. My opponent in fact leaves a piece in our time, giving me the free Atlas. They aren't even going to bother running it, which is so good. Not to mention the free 5 credits is huge for me. Because if they decided to pressure my remote, I would have to spend money to res my ice to defend against them. But with this piece in our time, it gave me money to score the Atlas and still have enough money to res my R&D ice. This is huge. So I'm in a very good position. You really can't ask for more against Shaper. Turn 6, I have 3 agenda scored, 5 agenda points, 2 Atlas counters. That's amazing. My opponent legworks me, and sure enough, there is an Oaktown in hand which they steal. Can't complain about that. It's about time they got something. They have to decide on the Argus trigger now. Tag or meat damage. Tough choice. They only have 1 turn remaining. But given they're pretty rich, I think they can take the tag and then clear it on the last click. There's no threat of a Zealous Judge here, so that's a perfectly fine move. They clear the tag. They still end on 14 credits to my 8. I can't land a hard-hitting news. It should be noted, they did see the hard-hitting news from my hand, so they know that I'm on hard-hitting news boom. So here is when I start thinking. This turn is going to take a while. I need to think of my best course of action here. You can too. Pause the video here and think about what you would do. Scroll back to the deck list if necessary, because those 2 Atlas counters are going to play in here. What would you use those 2 Atlas counters on? Tough decision. Pause the video now, have a think about it. I'll come back with my answer shortly. Alright, have you thought about it? Well, so here's the thing. I have basically all the kill combo pieces in hand. So that is not really what I need to fetch. What else could I fetch from my deck? I don't need to fetch ice. I don't need to fetch money. That's right. I can fetch the winning agendas. Don't forget, I'm running 3 hostile takeovers. So Atlas, triple hostile is a winning move for me. At this rate, if I can threaten the win in 2 turns by fast advancing hostile this turn and next turn. It also gives me economy, because with each hostile score, I get 5 extra credits overall, which should help me in the event my opponent does actually have the clot. So I'm definitely going to do that. And so I'm going to bring out my hostile takeover here and see whether my opponent actually reacts. Because if they do spend the SMC to get the clot out, it means that they don't have the barrier breaker needed to break my vanilla, which is my innermost remote ice. So, tilt up hostile with Atlas token, install advance, ask for actions. My opponent says, no. They are not going to show me the clot. Maybe they don't have it. So I'm going to score my 6 agenda point here. Can't complain about that. I'm 1 agenda away from winning. They have 1 turn to make magic happen, and let's see if they do it. So they draw here. No dice. It looks like they're looking for something, but they can't find it. Same old thing, and Fansite hit the table. Okay, looks like someone's going to get a lot of agendas in their score area. By the way, stock buyback triggers on Fansites as well. So I do want to see those Fansites scored because that gives me big money. Now, it's time to make the winning move, but I need to think carefully. In the event they have the clot, what do I do? What's my move? I have to think, because they now show the misdirection. And having misdirection installed is a big no-no against me. I mean, there's a very big counter to my deck. Because normally, I rely on hard-hitting news, landing 4 tags, and the runner not being able to clear them in 4 clicks. But with misdirection, you can clear 4 tags in the span of 2 clicks. So you need either double false lead or some other way to bypass misdirection. Anyway, I continue drawing here instead of scoring the last hostile because I strongly suspect my opponent actually has the clock. If they did not, they would have ran this turn. So I deduced that they actually did have the clock somewhere, and I needed to draw for an out. I drew my archer, which is exactly the out I needed. Archer secures me the remote. It means that they need to find 2 different breakers in order to get past my archer. So with my secure remote now, which can definitely gear check my opponent, 1 sentry, 1 barrier, 1 code gate, I go in for the hostile score and bring the clock out. So that's done. Let's see if they can get to the hostile takeover. I ditched all my hives because I'm on 6 agenda points at this point. I don't need them anymore. Let's see whether they can contest this hostile takeover. They only have a Guardian Blade. What can they do? Let's see. Click 1, Laguna Velasco District. Draw a bunch of cards. Again, drawing a bunch of cards. Remember, they have 5 clicks. I gave them the 5 clicks thanks to Beth. Beth is so good, paying off with so many turns passed. And the Omaqua that I've been expecting from turn 2 finally hits the table. Okay, so that's what we have to deal with. Okay, they're gonna get in. I'm still gonna rest the archer because I need to force them to sack the Dean Lister. Otherwise, they can just run through my remote willy-nilly. Don't forget, they have 2 bad publicity. This run is not going to be expensive. It's just going to tax out the Dean Lister. That's the whole point. So with the Dean Lister, Omaqua at strength 8, it gets past basically every ice. Now that they're on 4 credits, normally I wouldn't rest these 2 ice here because I'm pretty poor. But they were on 4 credits with no bad pub left, so I was going to tax them for every single credit they had. Enigma taxes them. Vanilla taxes them. They're now down to 1 credit. I'm happy with that. They can steal the hostile. I'm fine with it. Notice I still kept the Hunter Seeker in my hand. This is quite important because if they decide to tank the Archer subroutines by letting SACCon fire, it possibly opens an avenue for me to Hunter Seek. So they do steal my final hostile, and I'm now bumped back down to 5 points, which is fine. Now my win con is with the 3rd Atlas or scoring some other 2-pointer. I draw into a Heinlein grid. Now I need to think of what my next plan is. Click 1 draw, I find my plan. Exactly what I needed at the exact right time. Oaktown, install Oaktown Advance. Threaten win for the 2nd time. They can't get in now. They don't have a Dean Lister. Very important to note. Also note that I could have played the hard hitting news on this turn, and I probably would have. I did not in the end because I was 1 click short. If my mandatory draw was an Oaktown, I think a perfect turn would be install Oaktown, advance Oaktown, drop hard hitting news. They'll be forked either way. So with this, my opponent has 4 clicks to find some way through the archer. Let's see if they can do it. They need to break the end run on the archer, and having a strength 6 sentry end run is one of the big reasons why Wayland is so good right now. In particular, Wayland with expendable agendas, which you can use to sacrifice to rest the archer. Let's see if my opponent has a way around this. Even if they have a Dean Lister in hand, they need to have enough credits to get past all my ice, all those subroutines. So I'm still happy if they manage to get through, because that doesn't win them the game. In fact, it exposes them to more trouble with hard hitting news. So, click 1 is play Dean Lister, and then they proceed to click for 2 credits before running my remote. So that will give them enough credits to break all the subs, but then they realize this is untenable. They would lose because the Dean Lister only pumps Omaqua to 4. They only had 4 cards in hand. So this was not going to work. So we both realized it and we talked it through, and I said, well, obviously I did not give up any hidden information. You can take back your move. Logically, obviously it makes sense. Any logical person would draw for cards instead of clicking for credits, knowing that Dean Lister requires at least 6 cards in hand to get past Archer. With Omaqua. So there we go. So my opponent now is going to run with fewer credits in their credit pool than expected. Sure, they still get the 2 bad pub, which is going to be absolutely crucial. Without the bad pub, they might not be able to make it through very well. So they draw, and they run. So with 4 credits, they can only break 4 subroutines. So they are going to break 2 on the Archer, 1 on the Enigma, and 1 on the Vanilla. All the end runs and 1 of the Trash Program subs. So I get to fire 1 Trash Program sub, which will obviously be covered by the Sacrificial Construct. Again, having SACCon is so good for Shaper. Keeps the Tapworm and Claw in play, but also defends against stuff like Archer when you can't afford to break them. So we continue on. Enigma only has 1 sub. essentially because my opponent's out of clicks, and vanilla taxes them for the final credit, but they do get to steal the oak count. Now, because they managed to draw up last on their 2 clicks, they can then take the 2 meat damage, thanks to Velasco being so efficient with that. And now I need to find a way to punish them. They're on 0 credits. Obviously, a hard-hitting use is going to go their way. The question is, can I make use of this hard-hitting use window to push out an agenda? Because if I don't, they'll just clear the tags with misdirection, and I'm no better off. So I decided, instead of drawing up like my previous turns, trying to find an Atlas, I'm going to Hunter Seek their Ormaquah instead. And surprisingly, they let me trash the Ormaquah. They are not using Satcon here. Very curious. Okay, we take those. So my opponent no longer has the barrier breaker or the sentry breaker they need to get past my remote. I'm gonna slow them down with a hard hitting use here. It doesn't slow me down much at all because they're so poor. It only cost me 3 credits to drop it. It delays them for 1 entire turn. They are forced to click and clear tags here, giving me 1 more turn to find the Atlas or the 3rd Oak Town that I need to win. Let's see if I get it. Of course I do. I'm so lucky. Oak Town advance. They're not getting through this time. And they can't. So the reason why we talked about it at the end, the reason why my opponent decided to let me trash the Ormaquah was because they knew that they had no more Dean Listers in hand. Without the Dean Lister, there was no point in keeping Ormaquah on the table. Might as well save it for something else like the Clot, like the Tapworm. Personally, I would still have protected the Ormaquah because my opponent could have used it to still break the Vanilla. It could serve as your barrier breaker. As for the Archer, well, I guess they were never getting through it. And this is a perfect illustration of how a dual win con kicks into play and wins me the game. Even though my opponent had the perfect counter in misdirection for my hard-hitting use boom combo, they had to deal with it along with my scoring threat at the same time. In other words, this game shows that hard-hitting use boom isn't my main win condition. A lot of people have this misconception that if my deck has some sort of tagging mechanism, it's a main win con. It is not at all. In this game, it was a speed bump that my opponent had to deal with, and this speed bump allowed me to push agendas through the remote normally, and that's how I managed to win this game on 7 agenda points. Wow, that game, what an ending. I mean, it seemed like I had it in the bag, right? I had 5 agenda points and 2 Atlas counters by the end of turn 6. What could possibly go wrong? It actually came down super close. My opponent got to match point with 5 agenda points themselves. If I had 1 more agenda in hand, I would have lost because they did legwork HQ in the end, and everything was so nail-bitingly close. I couldn't afford to delay the game win by even 1 turn because that would have opened up new avenues for my opponent to win. I also drew very, very well this game, and I'll show that to you with this chart of my actions I took this entire game. The first thing you notice immediately is that for almost the entirety of this game, I was scoring agendas. This is not a degenerate deck where you money up, sit back, and wait for your opponent to run so you can land a hard-hitting use false lead boom combo. Again, many people have the misconception that because I'm running this sweet 3-card, 4-card combo that it's my main win condition. This sort of Netrunner is not Netrunner. This is just degenerate bullcrap. Real Netrunner is scoring agendas and forcing your opponent into a fork, like I did this game, where they are forced to make stupid runs through my remote that drain them of credits, and thus allowing me to land an easy hard-hitting use, which further set back the tempo. That's how you do it, and to do that, you need to score agendas to threaten the game win. Otherwise, they don't have to run your agenda. You can have it. So, there are 13 turns this game. Of these 13 turns, 1 of them I don't count. That's the Hunter Seeker and hard-hitting use combo turn, because that ate up my entire turn, but it also ate up my opponent's entire turn. They had to click for credits and then misdirect the tags. So we both each lost 1 turn there. For the 12 remaining turns, I spent 10 of those installing and advancing agendas. Think about it. That's a lot of time spent on agendas. And yes, at the end of the day, for the co-op side, Netrunner is all about agendas. You want to be pumping those agendas out by the dozen. And this game, I had to do so repeatedly because I had to sacrifice a hostile to Archer and I had to sacrifice 2 other agendas to my opponent, force them to run through my 3 deep remote through their archer multiple times to drain their resources. Third time was a charm. I finally got the winning Oak Town in the server at the end. That's how you do it. Those were 10 of the 12 turns. The 2 remaining turns, well, turn 1 obviously you don't score agendas, it's standard ice and money. And turn 8 was the one turn I had to take a breather because I couldn't continue jamming agendas in the Enigma Vanilla remote. I needed a third piece of ice in that very crucial archer in order to stop my opponent's Armor Qua. So as you can see here, again, I can't stress this enough. Good Netrunner is about scoring agendas. Be aggressive, especially against Shapers, because they can lock your remote so well by the time they get to turn, say, 6 or 7. And it is on the onus for the co-op to go fast, because past the mid to late game, when the runner has assembled cards like Misdirection and more, they will just completely disrupt your tag and back combo. You can no longer rely on tag and back as your pure main win condition. Again, another reason why it's not a main win condition. So yeah, I hope this was a thriller, because I certainly enjoyed the match, but boy did it come down to the wire. Thanks for watching, happy net running, and I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.